This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
Cycle Moody, Kaczynski, breaking the paint, right down the lane. Two-hand rip. He's doing pull-ups on there. That's what ball movement does for you. Awkward closeout, the defense is moving. You have an angle, you can attack those and do pull-ups on the rim like that. Milwaukee mash.
A lot of ball movement for the Warriors tonight and a huge final 15 minutes as the Dubs wind up putting a thumping on the Sacramento Kings. Warriors owed them one for sure, going back to the first couple of weeks of the season where the Warriors shorthanded went into Sacramento and the Kings got one of their 8 wins of the 2025-26 season at Golden One Center back on that night, but not tonight, although the Warriors were flirting with a little bit of danger, it felt like, for the first maybe 35 minutes of this game or so, but the Warriors wind up getting the job done. They win in blowout fashion over the Kings. 137-103 is the final. We welcome you in here. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We have the great Kyle Haar in the Daly City studios. We are live, as always, out here at Harmonic Brewing and in Thrive City. Cheers to everyone. And it looks like a pretty good Friday night crowd starting to pour in as the game lets out. And the Warriors, it took them a while, but they got the game to where you thought the game, or at least I think if you're a Warrior fan, hope the game would get to, which is turning it into kind of a laugher against a Sacramento Kings team that now finds themselves losing for a 7th consecutive time. But yeah, a little bit of a danger zone, it felt like, for about 2.5 quarters. But it was a whole lot of Steph Curry. It was a whole lot of ball movement, 39 assists. And the Warriors continuing to limit their turnovers, only 11 turnovers for Golden State in this game. And just about everybody who played wound up being, in fact, everybody who played for the Warriors wound up being a net positive in terms of the plus minus on this night. But it was 53-19. 53. The game was tied at 84 with 3:02 to go in the third quarter. And the Warriors had allowed, up until that point, a bunch of the Sacramento veterans, DeRozan and Levine and Westbrook and Monk and Schroeder, all of those guys the Warriors had basically allowed through the first half and half of the third quarter to get real comfortable with their offensive games, to a point where you thought, man, if the Kings get hanging the game to the final couple of minutes here, the Warriors may get bitten in the rear end by the fact that they basically allowed Sacramento to get comfortable. But then the Warriors put the clamp down, and Sacramento has been the case. I mean, this is a team that came in 30th in the NBA in terms of net rating. They're 30th in defensive rating. They're 28th in offensive rating. And again, bottom of the league. There's only 30 teams in the league for those scoring at home. And so this has basically been a team throughout the course of the year that's been the worst team in the NBA. They don't quite have the worst record. They've picked off some random wins here and there, including the one against the Warriors going back to November. They beat Denver in Denver, of all things, with Jokic playing. They won a game early in Milwaukee, but Milwaukee was playing well. But all told, this is a game that the Warriors absolutely, as the second of this 8-game homestand, could not afford to lose. And it wound up being a comfortable victory. So I think you give the Warriors credit for that, even though they were kind of going through the motions. I thought after they were in it early, up 21-12 as you kind of run through the game here. And it felt like it could have been maybe 21-4 at that point. But then they really went through the motions, not only for the rest of the quarter, but really for the entire second quarter. And again, the first 9 minutes of the third quarter, after the Warriors had jumped out to that 21-12 lead. And again, they were allowing a bunch of offensive rebounds. The Kings had 15 second chance points in the first quarter of their 29 for the game. And Sacramento ended up with only 19 for the game, so 4 second chance points for the remainder of the game. So the Warriors cleaned that up. But as we mentioned, both teams, it was kind of a defense optional game for the most part, and it felt right up until the point in which the Warriors went on a 13-0 run to end the quarter. It felt like, man, Steph Curry had 27. He was doing his thing, but the game was tied. and you're thinking, if they can't keep this up offensively, they may wind up in a little bit of trouble. But the group that really helped to put the game away for Golden State, it was Brandon Podziemski. It was the non-Curry minutes tonight that flipped this thing after it looked like maybe they were going to need Curry to go for 40 just to win a close one in this game against Sacramento. But it was Podziemski, Melton, Will Richard, Jimmy Butler, and Al Horford at the end of the third quarter, a 13-0 run that would turn into a 15-0 run and a 36-8 run and ultimately a 53-19 run over the final 15 minutes of the game. But that group in particular, Podziemski, Melton, Richard, Butler, and Horford, want to single out that group because they put it to Sacramento at the end of that third quarter and allowed for some breathing room. And then basically in the fourth quarter, the whole thing turned into a laugher and everybody eats and Podz is out there throwing it down and the Warriors are able to actually have some fun and enjoy a comfortable victory, although it did wind up still being a game where Steph Curry played 32 minutes. But other than that, Jimmy only had 23 minutes tonight, and it was really just spread around among everybody that had the ability to get on the floor and play for the Golden State Warriors. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the number to jump in and join the conversation here. Dubs OT with JD at Harmonic in Thrive City as the Warriors now make it 8 of the last 11 in the win column. 8-3 in the last 11. They're 2-0 on this 8-game homestand, and we'll see with Atlanta and Portland and all these other teams coming in. No, they're not singing happy birthday to me, by the way, at Harmonic at Thrive City. That was yesterday. For those again, scoring at home. But somebody's having a birthday. It was Grace, who's here tonight at Harmonic. Her birthday was earlier in the week on Monday. We got a bunch of birthdays. Larry Kruger's birthday's coming up, I think, this coming Monday. A lot of January birthdays here. But they're singing happy birthday to somebody. Not your guy, Kyle. Not your guy here at Harmonic. But all in all, winds up being kind of a light work fourth quarter for the Dubs as they end up winning this one and continuing the momentum. And while the rumors and the reports continue to swirl as to what level of improvement this Warriors team can make to their roster, no level of improvement is going to make a difference if the Warriors can't get a bunch of wins in the lead up to when they can actually look to make some trades in the trade deadline, which is now inside 4 weeks away. And so the Warriors basically at the last possible gasp of a stretch here in the lead up toward the deadline are starting to prove that maybe this team is worth fighting for a little bit. Now, I'll just give you another quick takeaway. De'Anthony Melton, we asked the question the other night, is he knocking off the rust? Because he really was doing, for the most part, everything that De'Anthony Melton has done throughout the course of his career. In the time that he's been back with the Warriors, but make shots. That's been the one thing that's been missing, and we've seen De'Anthony Melton get the three ball going here in each of these last couple of games. And that really does have the potential to take the thing to a whole new level. And we were asking the question the other night, is he knocking off the rust? Is this going to be what De'Anthony Melton ultimately can be, closer to the player that he was in the game on Wednesday and in the game tonight? And that, I think, does aid the Warriors' ceiling if De'Anthony Melton can be somebody that is much more of a consistent shooter and then thus a consistent scorer for this team. Not that he's ever going to be the consistent number 3 that the Warriors are looking to get, but he will consistently be somebody who's out there at the end of games and a part of closing lineups if he's somebody that can knock down shots. And it just makes the Warriors all the more dynamic to have one other portion of eventually maybe a starting lineup, but more importantly, I think a closing lineup that you don't have to worry about. Is that player going to be able to knock down shots? Because I think you wonder that about everybody not named Steph, I think, on this roster. Are they going to hit shots in the biggest moments or render themselves unplayable because they're not hitting shots? And so to see DeAnthony Melton finally start to snap out of it, and look, he missed so much time. Basically, the last 2 years, DeAnthony Melton has missed 2 seasons, to where I wasn't so confident that he was just eventually going to break through, shake it off, and all of a sudden be the guy that we saw in the early part of this decade with Memphis, that really was somebody that could be an offensive threat in terms of the ability to do just about everything on the floor. So 808 KMBR, 415-808-5627, Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line open as well here on this Friday night. We appreciate everybody filing in, as always, on YouTube and Twitch, as we are off and running here as the Warriors earn themselves a blowout victory against the Sacramento Kings. 137-103 is the final, and Warriors wind up, Steph with 27, Melton ends up with 19, Brandon Pajemski, the best plus-minus on the team, with 28 points and the big dunk, plus 28 and plus-minus 14 points, the big dunk. And the Warriors really spread it around, I thought, tonight. And it was a night where, they took advantage of some of the defensive deficiencies. It was just, can they put the clamp down at any point offensively to be able to get enough breathing room to turn it into what would be a comfortable type cruise control night? Because it just looked like the Warriors were not comfortable to coast against anybody. It also looked like the Warriors thought the Kings were just going to quit if they came out and jumped out to like a 10-point lead in the first quarter. And look, the Kings haven't won since, I think, December 27th. So we're coming up on, what would that be, about 2 weeks tomorrow from the last time that the Kings won. They've now dropped 7 consecutive games. You knew they were going to come into Chase Center and at least put up some semblance of an effort until the Warriors put it on them and kind of sent them packing. Given the fact that they had, and look, that's a mishmash of, just a horribly constructed, team of veterans, and they don't really have a single young player on the roster that projects to be a future all-star at this particular point in time. And so what you want to do is put a thumping on them. But I think that they were obviously going to show a little bit of pride. The Kings always do when they play the Warriors, the old little brother syndrome, I think, in Northern California. And the fact that the Warriors have won all these championships of late, become one of the darling franchises, and the Kings have been, for the most part, in the dreck of the type of team that we saw come in and play tonight. But you thought, as typically is the case, guys who are former all-star caliber players, even if they're long removed from that level, you would think that they would want to come in and at least give it a decent effort against Steph and Draymond and Jimmy. And for 2.5 to 3 quarters, it wound up being the case, and that the Warriors were going to have to basically put them out of the game, that they weren't just going to tap out. And I thought defensively the Warriors were for a good chunk of this thing kind of going through the motions, and both teams were real comfortable and feeling good about themselves offensively until that game changed. And then the wheels just completely come off. And there's been a bunch of games like that for Sacramento where they're kind of in the game in the second half a little bit, and then there's just one big enveloping run, and all of a sudden you kind of look up and it's like, oh my God, they're down 20. Oh my God, They've completely tapped out and are down 30. So credit to the Warriors, even though it probably took them longer than you would have wanted it to take them for being able to put a team like Sacramento away. We've seen the Warriors do that a little bit more here in recent weeks. Utah game, going back to last Saturday night, Warriors put that game away after the Jazz had kind of hung in. The Orlando game right around Christmas, the Magic had hung in the game, and then ultimately the Warriors put them away in a big fourth quarter run. So the Warriors are finding ways to try and make life a little less difficult for themselves than we've seen for the most part during this season as Golden State gets the win to get to 21-18, and they got to keep it going. 8-3 since they reached their low point of 2 under back on December the 18th, and 6 more games to come on this homestand with Atlanta, Portland, the Knicks, Charlotte, Miami, and Toronto all ahead in the building that sits behind me here at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City, which is Chase Center. All right, let's get to the YouTube chat. 808 KNBR if you want to jump in. We got a couple of phone lines open. The Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. We'll get to the text as we often do coming up in segment number 2, but it is the best YouTube chat in sports. It is a lively Friday night at Harmonic and Thrive City before everybody starts thinking about the Niner game and heading to Philly and all of those things as we lead toward Sunday. What do we got here? Gene chiming in. It's the Kings. But, yeah, they're gaining some momentum. It's not so much the Kings part of it for me, Gene. It's the fact that they did eventually make the game a laugher, and it is 8 of 11. And so every win here, if 8 of 11 turns into 11 of 14, then we're talking about something that might have the potential to be more significant. Don't mistake that for the fact that the Warriors need to still make a move or 3 between now and the trade deadline, because they do. But again, this team had to prove that they were better than the level at which they had been playing, to where they had allowed this thing to get all the way to 2 under 500, which was just, frankly, an embarrassment in terms of lack of cohesiveness, lack of overall talent, lack of consistent intensity. This team had to show something. Otherwise, you could make 3 moves and it wouldn't matter if your jumping off point was what we saw over the last couple of years, which is being 2, 3, 5 games under 500 before you actually get rolling. Good tip-off comment, though, from Gene. Always appreciate it. Zerkerex, great to see Zerkerex out here at Harmonic and Thrive City, by the way, on Wednesday night. As always, stop by, say hi if you're in the area. If it's not going to be for you tonight, stop by, say hi throughout the course of the week. We're not going to be here on Sunday because of the 49er game, but we're going to be back for the remaining 5 games of the homestand to follow here at Harmonic and Thrive City. So, as always, stop by, say hi. Zerkerex, I know it's just the Kings, but Warriors lost to some weak teams that they should have won. Yes, they have. We don't rate wins, Kyle. We don't do it. We don't rate wins. All wins you will take. But again, there is a difference for me. I don't know about you, Kyle, but there's a difference for me in finishing the game 53-19, even if it was tied, and even if it felt like a lot of games had felt this season, where they're letting a team hang around, and if it turned into a clutch game, is DeMar DeRozan going to hit 4 straight 17-footers to win you a game, or is Russell Westbrook going to hit a couple of threes and make a big play like we saw him do back in November at Sac, or Zach LaVine going to get hot at a quarter where he has the ability to explode, or Dennis Schroeder, who we've seen do it to the Warriors, Malik Monk, who we've seen, like, they were in that danger zone. But we don't rate wins, but I do think the Warriors get some credit, Kyle, for turning this game into what people will look at tonight if they're scanning scores, or look at tomorrow if maybe they missed the game or are checking out what happened in the NBA on a Friday night in early January, and they'll say, oh, Warriors did what I would think the Warriors should do to a team like the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, and you're really getting some semblance now of production and consistent production from guys outside of Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, a la D'Anthony Melton, a la Al Horford. Throw Podz, and you're seeing that short burst of Gee. That short burst of Gee. You get him for like 15 minutes a game, 3 minutes here and there. He does his thing. Well, Richard continues to do his thing, and you're building out a solid 10-man group. Not saying that needs to be the 10-man group to end the season, but it's looking a lot more consistent, and it just looks like it is flowing now when you're getting that production from guys from the bench.
Well, and let's not get it twisted. I mean, since Steve went to this starting lineup, which statistically has not been a great lineup in terms of like net ratings and plus minuses and things like that. But the one thing it has done, it has set up the Warriors rotation to where they're getting more now with Melton getting healthier and Al Horford in the mix and Brandon Podziemski coming around. Podziemski, Melton, Horford have really been the story here, I feel like, more often than not, the last few games. But really, I think when you separate out, along with Will Richard, who was taking on a greater role throughout parts of that stretch, and along with Guy Santos, who may not have to play a lot on a night-in, night-out basis, but I do think Guy Santos probably has to play for this Warriors team most nights, if not every night, for the single reason, Kyle, that he always tends to bring an energy and a focus that is a net positive. And you know what? If there's a physical matchup that maybe isn't the best for Guy Santos on a certain night, then all right, you cut out and you send him to the bench and maybe you go in a different direction. But it feels like Guy is a button that should be pushed in terms of the rotation, at least for a shift, maybe two, to see if he can positively impact the game, and then you go from there. And more often than not, it feels like he's found himself being a net positive and somebody that allows for other players to be more comfortable. And he's a guy that, even though he's not anything close to a star, he's a guy that's pretty easy to play with because of the style of play that he brings to the fold.
Yeah, no, he's good for that, like, extra couple of offensive possessions here or there. I don't know, like drawing a charge and then finding an open three, and he could hit a three. He could hit an open three if need be. So he's not a total liability. But yeah, there are some matchups where he can get out-muscled, shall we say. But I think overall, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, you don't have to play. Again, you don't have to play D more than 20 minutes.
No, and you look up tonight, and it always feels like he plays more than he actually did. Only 18 minutes for Guy Santos in this game. But really, everybody tonight for the Warriors, when it was all said and done, that got significant minutes wound up being a positive contributor, led by Steph, as we talked about. Melton with 19, Podz with 14. Jimmy was good, plus 20, part of that group that helped flip the game, 15 points in this one. I mean, Quentin Post hit some shots early, only played 13 minutes, but was a plus 10 and ended up having 11 points. Draymond Green coming around a little bit, 11, 6, and 8 for Draymond. Still had 3 of the Warriors' 11 turnovers, but of course, the guys who handle the ball the most are going to have the bulk of the turnovers. You look up tonight, and it winds up being 7 of the 11 turnovers are Steph 2, Jimmy 2, Draymond 3, and then single turnovers for Podziemski and D'Anthony Melton and Pat Spencer, who was in the game late. All right, let's continue in the YouTube chat. 808 KNBR. If you want to give Kyle Haar a call, jump in and join the conversation. Warriors win it 137-103. tonight at Chase Center. They've won 8 of their last 11. Gisak, it was obvious which team was better tonight. Kings are not a good team right now. No, that was the Kings' 7th consecutive loss. They wind up now, 8-30, Sacramento, 8-30 on the season. And we talked about the net rating. Like, the Kings are worse than 8-30. Their record says they're 8-30. They are worse than 8-30. They very easily could be 5-33. I mean, they've got a couple of random wins. They beat Houston a couple of weeks ago on a last second bucket. I think it was from Westbrook. Westbrook's actually helped them win a couple of games late randomly. Even that game against the Warriors, when the Warriors shut everybody down going to Sacramento. They won in Denver. Going back about a month ago, one of their wins on the season. But yeah, I mean, handle business and don't let it get to a point where maybe you can get got in the closing minutes. And I do give the Warriors credit for that. So good comment there from Gisak. We'll keep it moving here in the YouTube chat. Payne in the 707. Melton coming to form the past couple of games. Yeah, the offense is coming to form, which is a game freaking changer for DeAnthony Melton and a game freaking changer for the Warriors. That's been the missing link. It's not the ability to do to handle it and defend and be a ball mover and be the easy plug and play at a bunch of different lineups connector. The Warriors need that, but they also need that with a side of 3-point shooting. They need that with a side of anywhere between 14 and 19 points. That's what they need at this particular point in time. It's the offense that makes it. Like, nobody will ever argue and say DeAnthony Melton isn't a good player, but if DeAnthony Melton can actually score 14, 15 a game, then it does raise the Warriors' ceiling, especially in the regular season. It raises the Warriors' ceiling on a lot of these nights where they've played pretty competitively, but just have not had the offense that they've needed to be able to win some of these games. Some of the games that have gotten close that you'd hope would be a little bit more comfortable, and also some of these games where it's just been a freaking rock fight, where the Warriors end up playing exceptionally well defensively, and the ratings are all good in terms of the defense, but then can't throw it in the ocean from standing on the shoreline. All right, let's continue. Gene saying Melton is not a specialist. He does a lot of things well. JC Mack, this team is like a well-oiled machine. It just takes time to crank it up and get it going. I still don't know that I'm willing to necessarily go that far as well-oiled machine, but we have seen the starting lineup that the Warriors have put out there has allowed the rotation to be oddly more consistent, even though Kerr's playing everybody in shorter bursts, which is not something that I was a huge fan of when he went to it back in Phoenix. Basically playing everybody in these 4 5-minute bursts and then subbing out 2-3 guys at a time. Steph's playing shorter bursts. Jimmy's playing the usual shorter bursts, and he's giving a lot of these different players a lot of different opportunities to make an impact. And they are starting to crank it up a little bit and get it going after all the tinker. JC Mack, I appreciate the Bennett. Thank you, Bennett. Well, old. Thank you, Bennett. I apparently maybe my eyes are getting a little old as I run right through that. Yes, old, old machine. Okay, fair enough. All right, let's get to the phones here. We'll sneak in a call at 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Kyle, we have JT in Oakland jumping in here. All right, JT in Oakland up on Dubs OT here on the Sports Leader. Hey, JT.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, yeah, I see guys that have been playing out of control all year a lot better. Brandon Brzezinski for sure. He's slowing down his game a little because he's pretty out of control at times. But as far as any big moves, what I can see them doing, we need a bench scorer. We need a Buddy Hield who's not a defensive liability. We need a guy who come in and get hot, score, hit threes, like you said. And then a rim protector. doesn't even have to score. Just as long as even for the fouls, because we've been a little light down there for a while, and I think those would be 2 good pickups. I don't know how far they'll go, but it's good to see them slowing down and playing under control right now. But they do need to make a couple of moves, 2-3, like you said. But I think going for some more kind of spot players, a scorer off the bench, a guy who's gonna people.
JT,
gonna get some rebounds.
I think it's more of a wing than a guard, and I think it's more, we saw Malik Monk for Sacramento, and that name's been mentioned. I don't think it's a Malik Monk type. I think it is more, again, the Michael Porter Jr. type, and again, there aren't a bunch of Michael Porter Jr.'s. To me, it's more of a wing, big wing type player who can shoot, but is a bona fide top, 5, 6 in your rotation type of a player, as opposed to just a bench guy. To me, they're looking for one more of what their best closing 5 can be. And that player, I think, in a perfect world, is still not on the roster. I don't think it's a star, but I think, JT, I think it's probably in my mind, I think I'm describing a better player, actually, than maybe even you are. And I do think, if there's a secondary thing, it would be a big man that could plug into the rotation a little bit over, again, somebody that's kind of that combo guard, Malik Monk type of a player. Although I will say, they like Quentin Post in that starting lineup because he can shoot. Even though he's not playing a lot of minutes, it's a good way to get him in there, get Draymond off the center spot. And Al Horford is coming along here, kind of getting into a rhythm and hitting shots for the first time. Al Horford is a big-time game changer for this team, as crazy as it sounds, when he just makes shots, right? So the shot making has been there. The Warriors really, really hitting it from 3-point range in the last handful of games, 19 more tonight on 42.2%, and that's gone a long way. JT, thanks for the call, my man. Really appreciate it. 808-KNBR, 415-808-5627. It is Dubs OT with JD. Let's go ahead and take a quick time out here, our first time out. We've been rolling here for a little over 30 minutes to get the show going. We'll get more in the YouTube chat. We'll run through a lot of the rumors and other stuff that was floating around here today. There's a name that had been linked to the Warriors, of course, in Anthony Davis, that now finds himself injured. Shocker. We'll get into that. Some Monty Poole reporting to get into about Jonathan Kaminga. And, of course, the Warriors and Kings linked in terms of Sacramento's interest in Kaminga and the Warriors' lack of interest in anybody on Sacramento's roster. So we'll get into that coming back as well. More from the YouTube chat, though, straight ahead. We're off and rolling here on a Friday night. It's Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader.
Live from downtown.
Hurry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
Warriors' biggest lead of the night is right now. Butler to Melton for the corner three. Warriors are shooting at 45% almost from three-point range as a team.
Yeah, they'd wind up 42.2%, 19-45. They made all their free throws in this game. DeAnthony Melton, 3 of his 19, and the Warriors with a 53-19 run after the game was tied at 84 with 3 minutes to go in the third. They eviscerate the Sacramento Kings inside Chase Center tonight. 137-103 is the final. We're back here at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, the number if you want to jump in and join the conversation that way. 415-808-5627 is also the number to reach us via the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. And, of course, we appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch. The best YouTube chat in sports is the Dubs OT and the Sports Leader YouTube chat. Big DeAnthony Melton game. We'll get to coming up here some of the other headlines, including Anthony Davis. Cross Anthony Davis off the list. Anthony Davis, ligament damage in his left hand. That news breaking a little bit earlier today in the afternoon. And so he may end up having surgery and miss multiple months. So, I mean, you look right now, there's basically 3 months to go in the season. And you got to feel, I think, for Anthony Davis, although he has been, unfortunately, an injury-prone player, as talented as he is throughout his career. You know, in some ways, I think, just speaking for Anthony Davis specifically, with some of the issues with him being out of shape and calf injuries and potential for calf to lead to Achilles and those kinds of things, I actually think it could be a blessing for Anthony Davis that he ended up with this hand injury, because that's something that can be fixed and can heal up. And he's not going to wind up going somewhere or playing to a point where, you know, a little bit out of shape, he winds up with some kind of a leg injury or an Achilles injury. Honestly, like that would be potentially career damning, I think, for Anthony Davis at his age, wherever he winds up at this point. But I think it's good for the Warriors in a sense, not obviously that Davis is hurt, but that there is some clarity in terms of, all right, just cross his name off the list. The Warriors have been kind of flirting around with the idea of, would they really go in to try to get Anthony Davis? Would they not? Would they, include Draymond? Would they not? I've been against it, basically because I think Davis is out of shape, and it would probably take between now and the end of the season to get him in shape, independent of the ligament damage that is reported that has on that left hand. So I just think somebody, unfortunately, that's talented as all heck, but you can't count on to be available to play with enough regularity to be able to help, especially a team with the aspirations that the Warriors would have aspirations for him to be. So we wish Anthony Davis the best, but also cross Anthony Davis's name right off the list in terms of potential candidates for the Warriors. All right, let's, before we get to the phones, get a few more chats. We'll try to go rapid fire, although I love commenting on everybody's chat. I always like to give everybody their just due. But let's run through. Let's go through 5 quick ones right here, Kyle. We're going to go through 5 quick ones, I promise. Joke's on you. Davis with the broken hand is as useful as Kaminga with a broken motor. Let's Celebrini get them all healed for the playoffs. Moody and Kaminga healed equals Davis. Moody, Kaminga, and healed equals Davis? Does it? I got to do some math on that. I don't think it does. Moody and Kaminga, that's what, about 33? And Buddy, 42. Not quite. Joke's on you, but we appreciate the comment here. Let's keep it moving here. Gene, JD, Who would you take from the Kings for JK? I believe that's the only team that may be interested. Well, that gets us to another one of the stories from the day, which was Monty Poole, who reported NBC Sports Bay Area, the great Monty Poole, the legend Monty Poole, love Monty Poole, reported that the Kings are the only team interested. I don't think the Kings are the only team interested. I'm not questioning the reporting, but I also don't think the Kings are the only team interested. And to answer your point, Gene, and it was a really good column from Monty. I know the headline was basically the headline that made the rounds in terms of the aggregation sensation was that the Kings are the only team showing interest in Kaminga. But Monty used that as a jumping off point for a really good column about why Kaminga's value is where it is and just the juxtaposition as to what really has been at the crux of all of this for the entirety of Jonathan Kaminga's career, which is the fact that Jonathan Kaminga believes he's a better player than he's actually proven himself to be in the NBA, and that the Warriors believe that Jonathan Kaminga's value is more aligned with the player that Jonathan Kaminga believes he is as a player in the NBA. And they're both freaking delusional. They're both delusional. They're both off. Although I got to say this, Gene, and I'm getting off on another little mini tangent here, Kyle, so save me. But I'm going to just say it. Is there a player and franchise who deserve each other more than Jonathan Kaminga and the Sacramento Kings? Is there? And I'm not saying I think that's what it's going to end up being. And I've said this, and it's like Kaminga needs to go somewhere where winning isn't important. And isn't the priority, and it's a rebuild, and like he can develop his game in the ways he wants to develop it. But is there it? I mean, are they not a match made in heaven? Are the delusions of what they want to be and what they want to do, and like DeRozan and Westbrook and Levine and Schroeder and Monk, like all those dudes deserve each other. And Sacramento, honestly, given the team that they tore down and the way that they tore it down so quickly after 2 successful years, they deserve each other. And and Doug Christie deserves them. And they deserve Doug Christie for being a snake in the grass, helping to be part of the coup that wound up getting Mike Brown fired. Like Doug Christie, this is a chef's kiss to I mean, he like nobody should feel sorry for Doug Christie. Like this is the team Doug Christie. It's going to be the only coaching job he ever gets. And it is the perfect coaching job for him to get based on the way he got it and undercutting somebody that had brought more success to the Kings franchise as a head coach in Mike Brown than anybody had in basically 2 decades, going back to Rick Adelman. And he, along with Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis, undercut Mike Brown. How's it worked out for Mike Brown? Well, it's worked out for Mike Brown just like it's worked out for just about everybody who's ever left Sacramento. But my goodness, that they deserve each other. And my goodness, would Jonathan Kaminga not be perfect for the Sacramento Kings? Like they are a match made in basketball heaven. Match made in basketball heaven. The answer, Gene, to your question, to bring it full circle, and we might need to clip this up. This might need to be our clippity clip. I don't think anybody's working tomorrow on digital. But I'll post it on my own. I'll go rogue and post it on my own at this point. But, hey, Chico State. Don't ever put that other name and my name in the same. Keep that other name out your mouth when you're talking about me, brother. That is 2 different universes, my friend. Who would I take? Who would I take? Nobody. I mean, Ellis doesn't work with the salary cap. Ellis doesn't work with a salary cap. Keegan Murray's hurt and makes too much money now and can't be traded this way anyway because this year anyway. So he has he has the rules with Kaminga and the base year compensation. He can't be traded, and his stock is down anyway. I don't think there's anybody, Gene. I said I wasn't going to do it. I said I wasn't going to get off on a tangent, and Gene, of course, gets off on a tangent. Gets me off on a tangent. My goodness, Gene. But no, there isn't anybody. I don't want Monk. I actually probably would take Keegan Murray, but he's on a 5-year freaking deal now, like on that extension. So I probably wouldn't do that anyway. And let's see, who else would you take? Devin Carter, please. I know it's been the big reporting of the last few days has been, the Kings aren't willing to give a first-round pick, a protected first that they were willing to give a few months ago. The Warriors don't want or need that pick. Who cares? That's the most irrelevant. The Warriors don't need a Sacramento Kings pick. Protected. What top 30 protected? So yeah, I don't think Kaminga winds up with the Kings in a direct kind of a trade, but again, you might send Kaminga somewhere else, and again, if Kaminga winds up on the Kings, it's going to be because it's a multi-team trade, not necessarily because the Warriors take somebody back from Sacramento. And the Warriors, again, I don't want Monk. I don't want Monk. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We're going to do 3 more. We'll get to the call. Bennett, JD Kaminga's contract doesn't qualify for him to be bought out. Now, that's just mean. Now, that's just mean-spirited, Bennett. He's not getting bought out. That's mean-spirited. That's mean-spirited. All right, let's keep it. We're going to keep it moving, Bennett. We're going to keep it moving. All right, 2 more, Kyle. We'll get to the phones. Horford isn't the same player, but he sure looks good, Bingo writes, for a 67-year-old. Hey, Horford's found a little something in the last handful of games. Let's bring up the old Al Horford game log. I thought it was funny. Somebody asked pregame, hey, the Warriors don't have any back-to-backs for a week. Could this be the moment in which Horford gets on a roll? And I potentially, but, Horford, if you look at it, and I got to click back here, Horford, 9, hit a 3 tonight, hit a 3 the other night, hit 3 threes against the Thunder, hit a couple of threes against Charlotte. He's been a little better, I feel like, since Christmas. A little more impactful since he had the game on Christmas where he ended up hitting, 4 of 6 from three-point range in that one. All right, let's get another one here. Robert Brown, if they get stuck with Kaminga, it's very deserved, to be honest. Make no mistake. And they're not, I don't think, going to get stuck. They're trying to hint that they would keep him, but they know the jig is up as it relates to Kaminga. They're going to have to move, and I do think they will be able to move him. And yeah, if he winds up on the roster after the trade deadline and not playing, that's when the Warriors, I think, deservedly so, would be crushed beyond recognition for that decision. Because we can all say, hey, they should have traded him 2 years ago, and they should have, and I was saying it at the time. You can go back and check the tape. Should have been a year ago, but he got hurt. Should have been some kind of sign and trade, which I understand was going to be difficult because of the base year compensation and all that. But Kaminga absolutely should be moved at the deadline. And I'm not buying, again, I'm not disputing the reporting, but I'm also not buying that ultimately it will end up where the Kings are. I think the Kings are the only team interested in featuring him. I think the Kings are the only team interested in a little bit more than a flyer on him in terms of wanting to bring him into their fold and give him an opportunity to really try to flourish and develop into an all-star caliber player. that's kind of how I read that. It's more they have the highest belief in what he can be. And look, I mean, I'll say it. There are members of their front office, BJ Armstrong, who believe that he's Tracy McGrady, like 2.0. And so, we'll see how ultimately that shakes out. But there are members of that organization that think he is going to be something special as a player. But yeah, they'll get what they deserve if they wind up with him on the roster. All right, let's go to Drew Down up next here. Dubs OT on the phone lines. What's going on, Drew Down? You're on the Sports Leader.
JD, Kyle Hart, what's going on, man? Long time no talk. JD, man, cook them Kings, bro. They had the best season they had in years. And they fired their coach, trade their franchise player. They're a joke, man. Trying to say it's Carter and Starridge, Monk. Get out of here with all that.
Yeah, and the Warriors don't want any part of that, Drew Down. They don't. They don't want any part of that.
No. They don't. I agree, and I was steadfast in saying that. But some people up north, they had a different opinion. But we see what's happening. But anyways, the Kings aren't a great team, but we just got to stack wins, right? I don't understand what they're doing. They're 8-30. They got Russell Westbrook in the game late in the fourth quarter, down by 25. I don't know what that team's doing, but I thought GP2 had a sneaky good game. 12 points, 9 rebounds. I feel like against bad defensive teams, he finds a way to get open around the basket and make an impact. And my biggest thing is D'Anthony Melton, 19 tonight. He had 21 last game. I think if he can stay healthy, I don't expect him to drop 20, but he can get to the basket, hit the three, play defense. I think if he can stay healthy and he can repeat this level of production or close to it, I think that's a huge piece. And as far as the Kaminga trade stuff goes, my target is Michael Porter Jr. I was kind of hesitant about him, but just the way I've seen him play. Well, sorry, go ahead, JD.
No, I said 100%. I mean, I wouldn't be hesitant about Michael Porter Jr. He's having a great year with Brooklyn. I think part of that is he's been a little bit more featured with Brooklyn, but look, he was a third option with Denver, and that's exactly what he would be with the Warriors. Although it is a little bit different because Jamal Murray's more dynamic than Jimmy Butler offensively. Butler's better team game, get everybody involved, but in terms of scoring, Jamal Murray's going to be an all-star for the first time this year in his career. But Porter's played that third role as somebody that can basically just be a shooter, and he's been on a championship team. To me, it's more, Drew, and I'll let you continue, it's more like, can the Warriors really get that done, I think, at this point, than a would you want him conversation.
I agree. I just think his combination of shooting, his ability to rebound, his size, I think he can kind of be like a Clay-like, player in the offense where he doesn't necessarily need the ball, but if he's open and he gets it, he's going to shoot it, and a lot of times it's going to go in. So I think he'd definitely be ideal. And I agree. As far as can it happen, I don't know. That's where I think the Kings come into play, because the Kings want Kaminga and the Warriors want Porter Jr. Can the Kings and Warriors, give enough assets to the Nets to satisfy them in that kind of swap? So that would be my ideal scenario, and we'll see what happens. Appreciate it, JD. Thank you.
Well, and Drew, I think you're on to something here, and it's the fact that if the Kings want Kaminga, they may wind up with Kaminga, but it isn't going to be a direct two-team trade between the Warriors and Sacramento. It's going to be Kaminga may wind up in Sacramento. The Warriors wind up with some other players that interest them, and then the Warriors and Kings are going to have to figure out exactly how to make it work with that third team that would have the players that the Warriors would covet. I think too often, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody for the purposes of having this conversation and doing this show, you get into these trades and you start thinking one for one. And really, it's the outside the box thinking that the Warriors are going to have to find and figure out. Involve 3 teams, involve 4 teams, involve 5 teams. Get the guys you want while offloading the player that you don't want to a place that wants him. That's where, like, when Monty Poole comes out with the report that the Kings are the only team interested, while I do scoff at that a little, again, not disputing the reporting, but I think it's not, the way it's framed is not ultimately what's going to be 100% accurate. I think it's more about them being the willing team to give Kaminga the role that he wants. So there's always angles in terms of a lot of these reports, but I also think it's a scenario where that doesn't mean that a deal can't get done. And where I hold Mike Dunleavy accountable is the Warriors have to be the aggressors in going out, knowing that Kaminga doesn't want to be here, knowing that they don't want Kaminga and want to use him as a trade chip. Knowing all of that, you don't sit around and wait for somebody to make you an offer you can't refuse. You go scour the entire freaking league and find a player or two or three that you think can come in and help you, and then you move Kaminga in a manner in which you're not going to feel bad about moving Kaminga, and you let the chips fall where they may, and you allow for him to go attempt to develop with a franchise that covets him, which I think more than any other team. And that's where I say what Monty wrote is not inaccurate, because I do think the Kings want him more than any other team. Are they the only? I don't know, but they might be the only team in the league that believes Kaminga is a future star. Because I think the Warriors are one of 25 to 30 teams that think, and maybe the Kings are the lone team in that respect, that's willing to really give Kaminga the runway that he's going to want. So good call from Drew Down. One other quick thing from Drew Down in his call. D'Anthony Melton is sneaky dynamic. Like, puts his head down, gets to the basket, can finish a little bit, but all of that ability to be dynamic is enhanced when he has the ability to knock down the three-point shot. And I think that's the most important thing when you look at it from that standpoint. All right, let's continue on here in the YouTube chat. Appreciate Drew Down giving us a brief respite. Ian J. Kaminga is a non-factor at this point, net zero. Well, he's a non-factor for the Warriors on the court night to night. He's not a non-factor in terms of the trade, though, which is why he is still probably somebody that's going to continue to be talked about at this point. EB here, I think it's going to be a 3 or 4 team trade for JK. Yeah, I think that's probably what ultimately is going to wind up happening. From EB here, we move to our next comment. We got a lot of good comments tonight. The chat is firing tonight here on Dubs OT. Ed Botello, great to hear from you, Ed. Dubs are that bad team that plays really good once in a while. I think they're a little better than that. I think that's a little harsh. Fair or foul? Is that a little harsh, Kyle? A little harsh?
A little harsh.
Bad team that plays really good
We just played a bad team. We just saw what a bad team looks like.
That's a great point. That is a great point. You just saw what a bad team looks like. You just saw what a bad team looks like at this particular point. Let's keep it moving. Instead of saying let's tank, the Kings just say let's keep Christie all year. Yeah, same difference. And yeah, same difference. I think there's a reason Scott Perry said, "Yeah, we'll keep Doug. Why not?" Because he knew that he was going to have to tear this thing down to the studs. He's going to have to tear this thing down to the studs. Gisak, you're clowning JD. JK, a centerpiece. They have 2 players that have the same style of play, and they want to add another player like Levine or DeRozan. I know for a fact that BJ Armstrong, who's in their front office, believes that Jonathan Kaminga is a centerpiece. I'll say it. I'll put my name on it. I've heard it. Like, you want to know who? Like, where is all this coming from? Yes, that BJ Armstrong, the former agent. Yes, that B.J. Armstrong, the current assistant general manager of the Sacramento Kings. Played with MJ in the first three-peat for Chicago. Played for the Warriors back in the day. Like, I'm not clowning. Like, they are the only team that I think views him as a potential trade piece. But their roster, I mean, they don't have a single young player that projects to be an all-star. And I like Reynaud and Neat Clifford, and like I actually don't dislike some of their young guys. I may be one of the bigger Keegan Murray fans, although my goodness, his contract and he's not having a good year. Like Keegan Murray's stock is way down. But no, I'm actually not clowning, and nor am I saying I think Kaminga is a centerpiece. If you've listened to this show, I think you know that. And if he is, it's going to be on a team that's, winning probably in the high 20s tops. All right, continuing on here. Let's do 2-3 more. Drew down Melton being healthy and productive is a huge boost for this team. You're starting to see it. Melton making shots is a greater dynamic than anything we've seen. Danny from Vancouver in the chat. Dubs could easily have been 11 straight if they had taken better care in crunch time. No doubt. Could have got the Phoenix game. Could have got the Toronto game. And then what the other one was they weren't going to win the OKC game, I don't think, anyway. So I'll give you a 10 of 11, Danny. I'll give you a 10 of 11, Danny, from Vancouver. But yeah, if they had gotten the Phoenix game and the Toronto game, I guess it would have been 11 of 12 because they didn't get the Clipper game because they weren't. All right, I'll give you 11 out of 12, but 11 straight when they actually played their guys. Touche, Danny. I had to run through that in my head. Yeah, 10 of 11 or 11 of 12, actually. 11 of 12. Drew Down says, JD, do you think if the Dubs couldn't move JK, they would settle for DeRozan? No, I don't. DeRozan is an isolation-based mid-range player who is 36. Like, why would you want DeMar DeRozan? You would have to allow DeMar DeRozan to play the way Jonathan Kaminga wants to play to get the most effectiveness out of DeMar DeRozan. No, in no world would you want DeMar DeRozan if you're the Golden State Warriors. 2 more. Podz hitting that crazy shot from the baseline, writes Rusty Nail. All out of control with the shot clock low. It wasn't the Kings' night. No, that was the point. I think that may have put him up 30+ at that point. But yeah, it looked like it actually might be the Kings' night for 2.5 quarters, the way the Warriors are playing. And Robert Brown on the DeRozan tip, then they could definitely officially be the oldest team, JD. Yeah, you had DeRozan. Old, slow, DeRozan fits the profile, Jazz fan. He doesn't fit the style of play. He does. I do think they're going to be able to offload DeRozan, and Sacramento's trying to offload anybody and everybody. I do think they'll offload DeRozan, but not to the Warriors. Not to the Warriors. Bee's knees. How do people like watching Westbrook play? There are actually quite a few people in Sacramento that like watching him play. I think it's just because he is obviously an all-time great player. And Westbrook is an all-time great player. And I think sometimes I do think it's like if you're a Kings fan, it's like cool, just like, hey, this is an all-time great future Hall of Fame player playing for your franchise when you have nothing else to look forward to. Again, they have zero franchise players. Like, not only are they the worst team in the league in terms of net rating, but they have zero. Like, Reynaud's not a franchise player. Clifford's not a franchise player. Keegan Murray's not a franchise player. Keon Ellis is not a franchise player. Devin Carter's not a franchise. Like none of their young players are franchise players. They might be role players in and of their own right. But so I don't know. In a year in which think of Westbrook, here would be the Warrior hook to this. if you're a Warrior fan in like 2005 or 2006, you'd like 2026 Russell Westbrook playing for the Warriors. Think of it in that vein. Like, oh man, it's kind of cool. We've sucked for 14 years and been kind of a laughingstock in the NBA, but man, it's cool to watch this Hall of Fame player. You can't think of Westbrook as the guy who battled the Warriors throughout the years that Warrior fans hate as one of their most heated rivals. You got to think of it more as like, oh, that's kind of cool because our franchise sucks and he plays for our franchise. Great timeout, Westbrook. Dom Peralta. That there you go. There you go, Dom. Great timeout, Westbrook. Think of it that way. No doubt. Joe Schmo chiming in here. JK, I'm sure is a good dude, but it's so confusing. How is he not playing? He is. It's not personal. I know everybody keeps thinking it's personal. The Warriors have found a means to win 8 of the last 11. It doesn't include Kaminga. At this point, why would you be playing him? I think they reached a point where there was no furthering of his value, and why would you play him just to be playing him? And I know there's a few people that said, well, why wasn't he out there at the end of the game in garbage time? That's disrespectful. Like, you're making a mockery or embarrassing Kaminga at the point in which you throw him in a game at that point when it's a 30-point game, especially given all the rumors and speculation about those two teams being out there. Like, in no world would I put Kaminga out there at the end of a game like that unless Kaminga wanted to go out there. And so, yeah, don't sweat that at all. It's just got to run its course, and ultimately he's got to find himself that way. And Diggum points out JK don't want to play either, and that's what it is, right? I mean, this goes back to, let's just be honest. We can debate levels of blame, and Kaminga gets some blame, and the Warriors get some blame, and Kerr does get some blame. So we can debate the level of blame for whomever. But the reality is, when Kaminga was taken out of the starting lineup in mid-November, he basically was like, I'm good. And there were some injury issues, which I'm not going to dispute. But he basically, when it was like, yeah, I'm being scapegoated, and taken, like, he was like, you know what, I'm good, I'm done. And they gave him a shot in the one Phoenix game, and he didn't play well, and he didn't play well when he got other opportunities. So I think, honestly, more intelligent minds prevailed on both sides. And I give credit to the Warriors and Kaminga and his agent, honestly, for getting together, because I'm sure they did, even though it hasn't been reported. And it's like, look, let's just shut this down. Like, we're going to find a deal. Let's shut this thing down. And yes, as Bee's Knees points out, it was not he did quit in the sack series. He did. Again, the Warriors went away from him, and rightfully so back then. But I don't want to make this about that. I don't want to make this about that. I think Kaminga, given everything that had happened, I think he came into this season with the best possible attitude anyone could have expected. But when it went awry, it was kind of the final straw, and it's over. And so I give him credit for having that attitude at the beginning of the year, but this was very different from some of these other years where he was unwilling to do the things that would have given him an opportunity to be on the court. But yeah, there is some quiet quitting going on. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. 808 KNBR, phone lines open. We'll do our Sounds of Dubs OT segment. And I think we're going to end up keeping this thing going a little bit past 11 as we roll on here into the night. Spirited Dubs OT as the Warriors get the win 137-104 over the Sacramento Kings. We're talking about it right here. Dubs OT with JD, 137-103 on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no balls.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, sounds of Dubs OT. Warriors win at 137-103. It is Dubs OT with JD here, our final segment on this Friday as the Warriors win for the 8th time in the last 11 games. We'll hear from Steph Curry. We'll hear from Steve Kerr. And we will call it a night on that note as far as our sounds at Dubs OT. But let's get it going. We're going to do Steph first tonight, as he came to the podium first, as has been the case majority of the time this season inside Chase Center. Let's hear from Steph talking about the group that led the run that allowed the Warriors to separate that 13-0 run. It was when Steph was off the court, and it was Jay Butler out there with Podziemski, Melton, Will Richard, and Al Horford. Here is Steph on Jimmy.
Just the clarity around getting organized when he has the ball, different spots on the court, so we have our spacing right, and then, just confidence. If he's going to make a play, get downhill, swing it, whatever the case is, be ready to shoot, be ready to, swing it on the backside, keep the ball moving. It helps when you just know what to do. And I think he's lifting that group. That way they ended the third quarter, won the game, essentially.
Yeah, and again, it turned a game that was really concerning with the Warriors essentially needing Steph to go for 27, and the game was tied to be able to gain that separation with the 13-0 run that ultimately turned into the 53-19 run to end the game. By the way, and this is a name that you can put in your mouth next to mine, Deuce Mason, the Sacramento podcaster, and I think he's on NBC Sports California on some of the Kings pre- and post-game shows there. Great guy. Worked in the Bay for a little bit. Big Sac guy. He writes tonight, Kings are 8-30, and I hadn't done the math on this. That is the worst start to a season in the Sacramento era. So the Kings moved to Sacramento in 1985. So we're basically, 42 years now. This is the 42nd season, I guess it would be. And so it is the worst 38-game start in the Sacramento era going back to 85. And the game was tied, which we have talked about tonight already, 84 with 3 minutes to go in the third, 53-19 we've talked about. But Steph didn't score a single point of the 53-19 run. That was a connection that I hadn't made, and Deuce put out there, and it's like, whoa. So Steph did his thing, and then Jimmy and that other group did their thing, and then the game was over. So, yeah, there's Steph on that. Let's hear one more from Steph here. This one's always funny, and we'll give our guy Austin Scott the nod. He was in the post-game press conference, and funny how things can change in 2 to 3 years, where you had the Kings and Warriors playing that epic first-round playoff series in 2023. Steph was asked post-game, are the Kings a rival of the Warriors, Steph?
It's been years since, and the team's obviously different, the Kings, but it's been years since you guys beat them that 7-game series. Then they came back and beat you guys in the play-in. Just about 90 miles west of here, there's a lot of people that still think the Kings Warriors are a rivalry. I'm just curious to know your thoughts on that.
Geographically, yeah. That's about it.
So there you go. Short and sweet and to the point. Yeah, geographically. That's what you call, Kyle, a one-way rivalry. That is a one-way rivalry. It's there are rivals. Yeah, no, they're not. No, Steph does not give Steph does not give a blankety blank about them. He absolutely does not.
They're a good pit stop on your way up to Tahoe.
They're yeah, exactly. But no question. And could it have turned into a rivalry had there been other years of back and forth and both teams being good? I mean, maybe eventually. But it's funny. The Warriors have played every single team. Fun fact, and I think people know this. The Warriors have played every single team in the Western Conference in a playoff series, except for one in the Steph era. Do you know the one team, Kyle? Quick trivia question. The only Western Conference, the Warriors have played, so there's 15 teams in the West. Obviously, you take the Warriors out, so 14 other teams in the Western Conference. The Warriors have played 13 of those 14 teams in the Steve Kerr, Steph Curry era in the playoffs. Who's the one team they haven't played in that span in the playoffs?
Is it the Suns?
It's the Suns. Great
Nice.
job, Kyle.
Nice.
It is the Phoenix Suns. They should have played the Suns in 2022, but if you remember, Dallas beat the Suns in that 7-game series where everybody on the Suns got COVID and tried to play through it, and they wound up getting their ass kicked in Game 7 in Phoenix. And then it actually went to help the Warriors win the title. But, yeah, the Suns are the one team. Utah, they played in 2017 with KD. If you remember Bees Knees, remember the nightlife T-shirts that the Jazz handed out because Iguodala complained about no nightlife in Salt Lake, and then they had a bunch of nightlife T-shirts printed out for everybody at the at Delta Center in Salt Lake City. Golden One Center is a beautiful arena, by the way. I know that was kind of making the rounds in the chat. Golden One Center is a great building. No doubt. It might be the most first-class part of the entire Kings organization, to be perfectly honest. That was a very well-done, well-constructed building and the area around it continuing to grow there. All right, let's hear from Steve Kerr. Steve chiming in here on Horford and Melton, who have come along of late, and we're seeing the Warriors maybe finally kind of starting to play their best basketball. Here's what Steve Kerr had to say about what he envisioned Melton and Horford providing, and if they're kind of finding that rhythm now.
I mean, I think we're in a good groove with our rotation, and it helps to, have the same lineups out there, to have, Melt and Al both healthy and playing well. And it feels like the version of the team that we expected, when we signed those guys over the summer with the depth. And so we're getting into a good groove.
The Warriors do look deeper, I think, because of it. I mean, Horford you could count the games on one hand that Horford was helping them even a little bit. The Denver game in the first week of the season stood out, but and again, what was it? It was just not making shots. I mean, he's made shots because he does still, I think, do other things well, but even at pushing 40 coming up in June. But yeah, I think just knocking down a couple of shots, being a little bit, it makes him much more of a steadying presence. And then Melton is the quintessential. You look at him, and I mean, he's 27. D'Anthony Melton's 27. He's not 28 until May. Like, he's probably going to play this whole year at 27, but he's just had so many injury issues that you think of him as a much older player, frankly. But he is, if you can keep him healthy, the quintessential two-guard next to Steph. I mean, he really is, and finishing player and does a little bit of everything on both sides of the ball. So I know everybody's kind of waiting for when can he start playing back-to-backs, when can he push the minutes up to in the 30-minute range. I don't know that it's ever going to consistently get there, but they're working towards it, and we've already seen here with D'Anthony Melton back the ability for him to improve this Warriors team ceiling. All right, let's hit another one from Steve Kerr talking about turnovers, and this Anthony Slater of ESPN, a little back and forth between him and Steve Kerr on turnovers.
How actively are you ignoring the turnover conversation? Like nothing in film?
I just say, I don't mention the word. I just say, hit singles, be solid wins the game, and I'm not bringing it up anymore.
How about film? Will you show a bad pass?
Nope, not showing any. Just total ignorance. It's just bury your head in the sand like an ostrich, and it's working. So
when did you decide this? Do you
a couple
remember?
weeks ago. We did it in 22 after the Memphis series when we were turning it over left and right, and we just decided after showing clips of turnovers and talking about it and hammering the point home, and it wasn't working, we just stopped talking about it, and that worked too.
Was it a specific game this year? You remember it being after, like
Just been
Toronto?
it's been the last few games. Yeah,
Okay.
It's a good life lesson. Just ignore all of your problems and never acknowledge them. Don't look in the mirror. Just
And they get
ignorance is
fixed.
bliss.
Amen to that. I mean, I've been living that life for a few years myself at this point, right? Don't acknowledge any of your faults. Wow, that's pretty funny. And I know that has been something that had been going around. Like, hey, I don't even bring it up anymore. Well, it's 3 straight games. It's 3 straight games where the Warriors have helped to keep the turnovers relatively in control. And it's, you look up, and I know they didn't win that Clippers game, but that's an outlier at this point. But yeah, you go back, and the Warriors have been able to. That's the one thing that if they can do, they have the ability. And it was 15 turnovers in the game against Utah going back to last Saturday night. If they can do that, then I definitely think they have the ability to increase their ceiling pretty rapidly as it relates to this season and what this team can do moving forward. All right, let's hear one more from Steve Kerr on the defense tonight, because it really was a defense optional game both ways for the first 33 minutes or so, and then the Warriors kind of clamped it down for a bit. Kings missed some shots. I don't think there was anything phenomenal the Warriors did defensively, but here's Steve on nights where maybe you don't have it defensively and still being able to find enough to get the job done.
I just think sometimes some of these games at this time of year turn into, a little bit of a pickup game for a while, a little loose. And, I think understanding how difficult it is to get through the 82 and how hard these guys play night in and night out. There's just going to be nights where you don't have that defensive edge. And as a coach, you pick your spots, when to get on them a little bit and when to leave them alone. Tonight was the leave it alone night and trust that they're gonna find their way, and they did.
Unfortunately for the Warriors, they haven't been good enough on the nights where they don't have it defensively to win with their offense. And I think that's what you want more often than not. You want the ability to be able to, in the NBA regular season, where a lot of nights are defense optional kind of nights, you want the ability to have a team that can get the job done with the defense solely. And the Warriors, unfortunately, have not had that kind of a team, which has been, I think, a big part of why they have the record that they have and don't have a better record than the record that they have at this point. So they're finding it a little bit. Like tonight is one of those nights where they were cruising to a point where they probably could have won the game if they had maintained offensively. And that's where, not having a turnover spell, I think, really benefits them. But I think where the Warriors have really been hit in the regular season has been the inability to win a lot of these loosely played games where both teams are kind of going back and forth and just putting points on the board. And you can win a game, 128 to 121. It feels like the Warriors a lot of the time are losing that game when it gets to that point, or they turn it into a blowout on the nights where they eventually win that kind of a game. All right, let's wrap it up here in the YouTube chat, because somebody's got a 5:30 a.m. flight to Philadelphia tomorrow. Let's keep it moving, and we'll get let's get a bunch in. Let's go rapid fire, but get a bunch in. Bees Knees, Kings versus Smart basketball hirings is the true rivalry. Man, ain't that the truth? We'll see what Scott Perry can do with Sacramento. The one thing I will give him credit for is he has acknowledged, and it's really the first time I can ever remember the Kings really fully acknowledging that they're going to have to do a OKC Houston style rebuild, like really tear it down. The thing is, I would have, if I'm a Kings fan, zero faith in the Kings' ability from the ownership level down to stick to that plan. They couldn't stick to the plan when they won 48 games 3 years ago. They won 46 and couldn't handle the success. They kicked Harrison Barnes out like he was the freaking problem, brought in DeMar DeRozan. And that was the first thing, by the way. Before the Mike Brown stuff, before they overpaid Malik Monk, before all that stuff, they thought they were upgrading their roster by getting DeRozan over Harrison Barnes, and they were absolutely wrong. They brought in another ball dominant isolation-based player that limited De'Aaron Fox's ability. The other thing that ended up happening with Fox, they needed Fox to want to step up and be the number one player within their franchise, and Fox doesn't want that smoke. And again, it's going to work out pretty well if he can stick with San Antonio and Wemby, because Wemby's going to be so good that he can carry it, and Fox can kind of be that 1A or even 2 or 2B, whatever it is, even the third guy maybe at some point eventually. But Fox didn't want the number one smoke. He was the best player against the Warriors in that series. But if you followed the Kings over the 2 years where they were good, 2 years ago and 3 years ago, Domantas Sabonis was their best player. And, you can have a conversation about how good you could be if Sabonis is the best player. And that's its own separate thing. But, that the two big things that happened was Fox didn't want to be an alpha because it ain't his personality. And so they were always going to be capped with him as the second best player. You were going to be capped if Sabonis was your best player. And then they started blaming the wrong people like Harrison Barnes and Mike Brown and everybody else. And they found themselves back in this position where they are, 2 years removed from being a 46-win team that didn't make the playoffs, a team that's going to struggle to win in the low to mid-20s. Max Lopez, let's trade Halliburton to keep Fox, then trade him anyway. They did do that, Max. They did do that. And, They did that because they didn't think Fox had enough trade value at the time, which he didn't. So they went, all right, what's the best player we can get for Halliburton? It winds up being Sabonis. It actually worked in a sense, but they were never going to be obviously a title contender. Like they were boxed in, and here's what the Kings should have done that they didn't do. And yes, they should have kept Halliburton, of course. I mean, that's not where I'm going with that. But what the Kings should have done was appreciate the fact that they were winning in the mid to upper 40s and just been good with that for like 5 years. Just be Portland from the mid 20, teens. Like they were great timeout level of suck for longer than the Warriors were after the Weber year they made the playoffs before we believe. And they got a little greedy. They got a little greedy thinking that they were going to be something that they weren't. And the owner started feeling himself. And then when things couldn't take another turn, the owner started the blame game. And they should have just appreciated the fact, as a team that hadn't made the playoffs in 16 years and all of that, they should have just appreciated the fact, 17 years, 16 seasons. They should have appreciated the fact that they had a good, young, competitive team that was probably going to continue to win in the mid to upper 40s every year and probably get beat in the playoffs. But so the heck what? You would have been a fun team to watch and your fans would have enjoyed it. But they got a little greedy, and they got a little greedy, and they also got a little ungrateful. To be perfectly honest, they got a little ungrateful because they were impatient as to what they had. Cocky, I agree, Otis Bird. They got a little cocky. They got a little ungrateful. They got a little impatient. All of those things I think are kind of equally true in this. But they should have accepted the fact that they were never going to get to title contention, but understood the fact that, you know what, there are a lot of starving Kings fans that just want a competitive winner, and we're going to fill that building and bring a lot of really cool energy to that place and that city with a team that would have embraced, even if they were south of being able to win a championship. And yeah, Bees Knees points out, same thing happened to Memphis. Yeah, Memphis got a little greedy and a little weird. And once you taste it, and it's like, if you're going to go big, you do what Houston did. You go get Durant. You don't go get DeRozan, right? Like, anyway, I digress. It's Dubs OT. We'll leave the Kings OT to our buddy Deuce Mason and Mo in Sacramento. But yeah, they had a good thing going, and I think they appreciated it. But they also got a little greedy and a little ungrateful along the way. All right, let's keep it moving. Trade the Kings to Denmark for Greenland. Now, that's just mean-spirited. That's just mean-spirited. Come on, Rusty Nail. Come on, Rusty. That's mean-spirited. All right, Bennett Roth, breaking news, AD, everything is breaking. Yeah, not good. I actually feel for Anthony Davis. Oh, I got to get to this Bill Simmons thing as well. We're not going to play it, Kyle, so don't. Bill Simmons was dropping F-bombs about how unwatchable the Warriors are because he's a Clippers season ticket holder, and he didn't go to the game Monday. And anyway, it was kind of a viral social media clip. And he called the Warriors unwatchable, basically. And I said, Bill, come on, man. Like, this team this year is more watchable, and this team this year is more watchable. And I kid you not, this team this year is more watchable than last year's team was at this point, 2 years ago's team at this point, 3 years ago's team at this point. The Warriors were pre-Jimmy Butler right now. They got 4 or 5 games under 500 2 years ago at this point. 3 years ago at this point, coming off a title, they were a major disappointment. Like, they let me tell you something. I get it. It's not by virtue of the standard that Warrior fans have been spoiled with in terms of contending for championships, but this team is far more interesting and far more watchable than any of last year, the year before, or even the year prior to that. Those teams were. All right, let's keep it moving here. A few more in the chat. Maybe Doug Christie will be fired by text this time. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I don't know how it's going to play out, Danny, but and I hate to come off as mean-spirited on it, but Doug Christie's getting exactly what Doug Christie signed up for. Nobody, and I mean nobody, should feel bad for Doug Christie because he snaked Mike Brown out of a job with Malik Monk and with Domantas Sabonis, among others, in that Sacramento front office that became impatient irrationally. But EB here, instead of night, early fourth quarter, staff was yelling, "Start the buses." Start the buses. That's right. Start the buses. Let's move to Bob Money. We shut. Am I allowed to say? I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say it. We'll put it on the screen. I'm not going to say that. That's an old Shaq quote. Shaq famously or infamously said that, but I'm not going to say that, Bob Money. All right, let's get to our comment of the night.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
Danny from Vancouver, big in the chat. I love Danny in the chat.
He was on a flight. He was watching his YouTube, Dubs OT YouTube on his flight.
We love it. We love it, Danny, watching Dubs OT. And by the way, it is going to be a stream only on Sunday for the folks in the chat. We are going to go live. I am going to be in Philadelphia, and thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate this. Hang on, Kyle. Talk for a second, Kyle. I need to sip here.
All right, JD needs a sip. But yeah, no, again, shout out to Danny from Vancouver. Usually he calls in, especially on a game like tonight where the Warriors would blow out the Kings, but he's on his flight. But anyway, tuned in to Dubs OT anyway.
Well, we appreciate it. No, we appreciate Danny doing that, and we love Danny. Thanks to you and JD writing this to Kyle. Great show tonight. Been watching the game, Dubs OT and the YouTube chat. Killed most of a 6-hour flight. My goodness, Danny. I've got about that much time on the plane tomorrow. So looking forward to that. And you're right, Chico State. I do have the best job in the world. There's no question about it. Sounding like Elvis. Elvis, my birthday buddy, Robert. Elvis, one of the most famous people, born on January 8th, by the way, if you didn't know. Elvis, David Bowie, Stephen Hawking, Jason Giambi, among those born on January the 8th. Who else?
Four greats and Jason Giambi.
Yeah, four greats and Jason Giambi. Brian Johnson. Remember Brian Johnson? I mean, this is before your time, but Brian Johnson hit the big home run. He was backup catcher for the Giants. He played at Stanford. He was actually a quarterback at Stanford. He worked in the Giants organization as well. Brian hit the big home run against the Dodgers to help them win the division back in the late 90s. Brian Johnson, also a January 8th birthday. There are some other. R. Kelly, I don't know if I claim him as a January 8th, but he's a January 8th. I probably don't claim him. Yeah, 97. Bee's knees. I'm old enough to remember 97. I'm definitely old enough to remember 97. I was actually in high school at 97, so I'm more than old enough to remember 97. So, all right, good stuff in the YouTube chat, Kyle. Let's go ahead and close up shop with a little fun with numbers.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, here we are, our final installment here on Dubs OT. Fun with numbers, as the Warriors have won 6 of the last 7 games at home. They're 8-3 now in the last 11 games overall. 13-5 at Chase Center. Second of the 8-game homestand. Warriors are 2-0 on the 8-game homestand. It's tied for the longest homestand, by the way, in franchise history as we roll through Sunday and Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday and next week. This 34-point win for the Warriors, largest margin of victory for the Dubs this year, larger than the 32-point win in Chicago back on December the 7th. Warriors scored 40 in the fourth quarter, most they've scored in the fourth quarter this season. And again, it was a 53-19 run from the moment in which the game was tied. Warriors had a bunch of points in the paint. How are you punishing the Kings? You punish the Kings by driving to the basket and getting into the paint. They have 0 resistance. 60 points in the paint, damn near a season high, 62 against Orlando. Warriors, again, won the turnover battle tonight. They're 16-4 when they have the same amount or fewer turnovers as their opponent. And the Warriors end up with Steph and Curry going for 27, but Steph did not score in the 53-19 run, as we noted. D'Anthony Melton led all Warrior bench players with 19. It was a really good night for the Warrior reserves overall. 66-38, complete and utter dominance for the Warriors bench tonight. 19 from Melton, 14 Podziemski, 12 from GP2, who had a game-high 9 rebounds as well. Third straight game in which he scored in double figures. And when Peyton scores in double figures, it really feels like house money. Brandon Podziemski deserves a shout-out. He's played much better of late, and I think deserves a hell of a lot of credit for helping this Warriors team get off on a different front from where they had been over the last few weeks before this 8-3 stretch. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight here on Dubs OT. Kyle, big thanks to you, my man. Appreciate you in our Daly City studios. Who else do we have tonight? We had Chips McCarthy.
We had Chips and little appearance from Kyle Chung in the 1050 studio.
Wow.
No wonder why the Warriors blew out the Kings.
Wow, Kyle Chung. But I'm looking at it right now. I didn't search it out because Kyle's been a little absent during the holiday season. My goodness, what do you know? Kyle Chung, plus 34. Plus 34. Plus 34 for Kyle Chung, for Kyle Chung in our Daly City studios, helping to hang out. So yeah, for everybody in the chat, again, no Just Dubs tomorrow. I also I'm going to be on the Danny in Vancouver 6-hour flight. Not quite that, but I do have a quick layover in Denver. And then on to Philadelphia. But make sure you're locked in for the Niner coverage. Listen to Krug tomorrow. He's going to be from Philly. I'm going to be with Copes from Philly, 10:30 in the morning out here for 49er pregame and postgame. And, yeah, we're going to do Niner pre and postgame. And I'm going to have a cheesesteak, and we're going to do Dubs OT for the people in the stream. We'll probably go about an hour because it's going to be late. And I do have to skedaddle out of Philly to get back here to the Bay with a pretty early flight Monday morning. But, Kyle, we're going to let you do your Niner stuff. I'm going to do my Niner stuff. Everybody enjoy the Niner game. Enjoy the Sharks game tomorrow as well. Enjoy the NFL playoff games. And enjoy the Warriors and the Hawks. And then we'll be back right around 8 o'clock on Sunday night from Philadelphia with a special stream-only edition of Dubs OT. So we appreciate you. Warriors win at 137-103. Big thanks to everybody out here at Harmonic, including the wonderful Grace, fellow January Capricorn birthday within the last week. Cheers to everybody out here. We'll talk to you Sunday from Philly and back at Harmonic and Thrive City Tuesday after the Warriors take on the Portland Trailblazers. They got to get a win against Portland, but first it's Atlanta. Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Emirates Cup or bust?
Oh, hell yeah.
First of all, you got to start off liking each other.
I'm super cereal.
Big